Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Can you believe it? It has already been, well, just over a month here. Welcome back to PickUpz. That's what I'm going to be calling this series. I cannot obviously guarantee that there will be pickups every month, but for the time being, I'm in a place where that is possible. So yeah, so this is PickUpz for the month of, I cheated a little bit, September and early October. Not all of these, which we'll get into, I got, you know, this past September, because I'm recording this on August or October 2nd or something. So yeah, I don't know, and I'll probably upload it midway through the month. So, oh man, it's really hot, so I'm trying to get through this. Obviously, a new format. I wanted to clean things up a little bit, make it look a little better. We're gonna be starting with PlayStation 2. I got 3 PlayStation 2 games. I just picked these up, so we're gonna go in alphabetical, I guess. We got Alfa Romeo Racing Italiano for, oh dear, for PlayStation 2. I believe this thing is exclusive. I've actually not done that much research into it, and I do believe this is complete. Pretty neat. I've not heard great things about this game. I just know it's a racing game and it's exclusive, so I had to pick it up. PlayStation 2, obviously home to stuff like Gran Turismo, so you're gonna have really strong, hopefully really strong competition to that. So stuff like Enthusia and stuff like that. So yeah, I decided to pick that up. It's been on my radar for a while. Then Red Faction, pretty big game for the PlayStation 2. It was exclusive for, I believe, the longest time. Of course, it made its way to PC, and then it had a remaster a couple months ago. Join the revolution. I have played this before on emulator, and I gotta say, really good game. I feel like this game gets overlooked by some people, especially, you know, FPS fans, but no, this is a great game. I have not completed it, but no, I highly recommend this one. It looks great too. I was playing it on a CRT, and man, does it look really good, and the voice acting is solid too. I want to check out the more modern ports. That's something I actually haven't done. I've only played this version, so I definitely want to check it out. Later in the series, I'm more familiar with games like Red Faction Guerrilla, so that game's awesome, but I don't know. Well, I'll see, try to finish this thing and see what I think. Okay, now I did something I normally don't do. I got a multi-plat on PS2. For those of you that don't know, I do the system where I try to get as many exclusives as I can for every console, but I pick ones for my multi-plats, and I broke my rule here. Normally, for multi-plats, my rule is the Xbox, because in general, multi-plats played the best on the original Xbox, and so that's what I usually get them on. But I broke my rule here, and I'll explain a little bit here in a little bit. This is, of course, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Now, to my knowledge, the first 2 Harry Potter games, being Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, I believe were on PS1, and then had quote-unquote remakes made for, as part of a set. Wow. This is not complete. Now you're probably like, well, you know, this thing is on Xbox. Why don't you get it on Xbox? For one, the Harry Potter games are actually really expensive on Xbox, and I just wanted to see if this was a game I would even like. I got this for $7, incomplete. Why the hell not? I can always trade it back later. One thing I have learned about this version of the game, it runs terribly. Within the tutorial, I felt massive frame drops, and so yeah, I don't know, wasn't impressed. Apparently it runs at 60, or attempts to target a 60 FPS. Barely hits that, but the case is in good condition too, so if I need to, I can swap around cases for whatever reason. But yeah, I don't know. Very charming game, but I cannot recommend this version. But yeah, I don't know. It's a PS2 movie tie-in game. You know, these were so popular that I kind of felt like, well, I need to, right? I need to check it out. Again, not a lot of PS2 pickups this time, because in general, the PS2 games worth a damn, or the ones that interest me, are generally pretty expensive. So I do want to eventually show off my PS2 collection because I do have a very, I wouldn't say very substantial, but one I'm proud of, and so I want to show that off eventually, because the PS2 is a system I've given a lot of crap to over the years. Like if you've watched any of my previous videos, I've never been the biggest like massive fan over it, but within the last like 2 to 3 years, I'd say I've really gotten into that system, you know, properly hooked it up to my televisions and gotten good accessories and stuff like that. So over time, it's become a console I've come to respect a lot more, especially as someone that's kind of made their way to becoming a pretty big PlayStation fan. So of course, original Xbox. I'm going for. I want to get a complete. Sorry, it's so hot up here. I should have thought this through, but I want to get a complete North American exclusives list, which is about 85 games. So I'd like to get that. Starting off not very strongly here. Kabuki Warriors. If you know anything about this game, you know it's a pile of shit. Now, I've heard this game wasn't good. I want to make that clear. Like, I did not pick up this game expecting it to be amazing. But I was quite shocked how bad it actually is. So, this is a fighting game done in, I believe, the Kabuki style. And this game is terrible. Very bland character design, very bland music, bland stages, awful controls. I have, like, there are some bad playing fighting games out there. This has to be one of them. Like, I genuinely think this is one of the worst fighting games I've ever played. It only, you know, obviously runs at 480p, so that side of things isn't terrible. The performance is okay, but there's only one attack button, and that's extremely limiting, and it's awful. It does not feel good to play. This is one that, like, you really need to learn, like, the ins and outs of, but it's just not worth your time. So I don't know. This might, you know, this is backwards compatible on 360. Maybe I'll play with some friends someday, but I don't know. This is an oddball one. It's gonna be sitting on my shelf for a long time because, yeah, this is a terrible game. All right, moving on to better games. Many of you may know I'm a pretty big shooter fan. Obviously, I showed that off with Red Faction, but if you've known me, I've loved the Call of Duty and Halo franchise almost my whole life. So, yeah, I decided to jump into a franchise that I know of, but I've not really played of, but we'll get into that. So, I picked up Medal of Honor Frontline. Now, for those of you that know, this is a series that I believe got its start on the PlayStation 1 as well as the PC. You don't play, you volunteer. All-out multiplayer warfare. Armed to the teeth with 18 authentic World War II weapons. I have to admit, I did not expect a lot from this game. It was, I believe this is like a post-Halo 1 game, but obviously you don't have a lot of the innovations that made Halo 1 great. But I was expecting less, and I got quite a good chunk of entertainment out of this thing. This is not a bad game. Highly recommend it. I want to check out the multiplayer mode eventually. I just would need to get some people together to do that. Here's the spine. It's a little faded. That's okay. Super cheap game, too, so if I ever really want a replacement, I could get one. EA, back when EA actually made games that were worth a damn. My history with the Medal of Honor franchise is not great. The only one I've legitimately, like, played before this one. I beat this game, by the way. Out of all the games that I've shown off so far, this is the only one I've actually beaten because it's short and it's good. A little tricky, but pretty good. And one thing that's amazing about this game, fully customizable gamepad controls. Like, you can, from the get-go, you can change every single button and what it does. Same with Red Faction Red Faction also did that. More games need to let you do this. I don't know why that still isn't, like, a standard these days, but whatever. My history with this series is the only one I've played is Warfighter. It was on PS3 and Xbox 360. I was not very impressed, and then I know there was that VR game like a year and a half ago, done by Respawn, which, of course, EA. But I don't know, this has always kind of seemed like a franchise that once Call of Duty became really big, it just kind of lost its luster and really tried hard to gain a footing again and just never really did. Then, of course, we have a little more Medal of Honor here. This is Medal of Honor Rising Sun. kind of a sequel to Frontline. Frontline is, of course, all about just the invasion of Normandy and stuff like that. This game is about the Pearl Harbor and basically the people involved with that and a lot of the Japan conflict. Here we have the game, incomplete. That's okay. I have not really played this one very much. Obviously, it has a lot to live up to. Call of Duty 2 and World at War are very good. Actually, Call of Duty 2 had more to do with Europe, so less to do with Japan. But I don't know. Pretty much every World War II game is going to have big shoes to fill. I mean, World War II is just such a massive conflict in human history. Of course, there's going to be a bajillion games about it. But yeah, I don't know. This is I wasn't quite as impressed with this one as I was with Medal of Honor. You start on a Frontline, you start on a ship, and it's really claustrophobic. It felt a lot like Halo 1's first level, but less good. If that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to check out other games in the series, and then maybe giving Warfighter another go. I know Warfighter generally isn't regarded as being very good, and then maybe one day I'll become a Medal of Honor expert. I'd love to try these multiplayer someday. Do they have System Link? That one doesn't. Does Frontline? Doesn't say. Okay. I'll have to check out. Maybe I can play those on X-Link Kai someday. Alright, here's another one that I'm a little embarrassed with. I had never played until now, and that is Midnight Club 2. Pa. I don't know who Pa is, but you're in the video, so good job, Pa. This is a series I've only played the more... I believe it's still to this day the most recent game in the series being... what's it called? Midnight Club LA, Los Angeles. And, you know, I like that game, but I've heard that the older games are far superior. And, you know, this game has Los Angeles, Paris, and Tokyo. And, you know, booting this thing up for the first time, oh man. It is a beautiful game. This is a 480p 16:9 game, and it's good. It controls well. I mean, it's, you know, it has that Rockstar seal of approval. Oh, Rob. I don't know who Rob is, but your game... What's this? Epic Movie and Game Rentals. Damn. I got this complete. Pretty happy about this. It's a series that I've always wanted to try, because I know a lot of people, especially on, like, the... What do you call it? The Xbox, r/Xbox Reddit subreddit, really praise these games. So I decided I'd check it out. So, yeah. I haven't played too much of it, but, you know, generally impressed with what I've seen. Okay. Then these next two are sports games. Just get them out of the way. No, I'm just kidding. NHL Rivals 2004, of course, with the fancy sticker. This is also one of those games part of the Xbox Sports Network thing. I explained this last video, but those of you that don't know, it was basically like this leaderboard system that they came up with to kind of not necessarily connect, but like make it so that all the sports games were under one title and like kind of had some connectivity, like very limited, but like there was leaderboards and stuff like that, kind of, you know, BattleNet, or not BattleNet, is that what it was called, for the Battlefield games? For the longest time you had, I think it was BattleNet, I don't know, but you had to like log into a browser version of Battlefield 3 before you could boot the game up. That's kind of what this is like, from my understanding. This game I wasn't too impressed with. A lot of the other Xbox Sport Network games I was quite impressed with, specifically Lynx, and then of course Top Spin and Amped 2. Amped 2 is very good. So yeah, hockey. And then this is one that a lot of people really like. This is NFL Fever 2002. Obviously I'm not really a football guy, but I don't know. This is a series that's gotten quite a good amount of love over the years from people, so I thought I'd pick it up. I have not played it. I know the disc works, but I've not, like, you know, actively played it. I got this complete, and this, I believe, was a launch title. So, yeah, pretty cool. Happy to have that. I'm always a fan of that little sticker right there. If your game has that, I want you. Okay, and then more Xbox stuff. A little backstory. So, the 360 that I have had three 360s in my lifetime. One being, of course, the launch model, which had a red ring. Then we got a replacement from Microsoft, which also red ringed. And then my dad wanted to get another 360, And the second one that red ringed, we actually got it repaired, and like they sent it back to us. Then my dad decided to soft mod it, and then it got console banned, and so yeah. And then we waited a couple months, and then we got another 360. We got what is known as the Xbox 360 Elite. It was that black one of that original model that that had a bigger external hard drive that you could plug in, and then it was black and it had HDMI. So it was a pretty big deal. It was my first console I ever had with HDMI, and then the next being, of course, the PlayStation 3, and then the Wii U, and then the Xbox, blah, 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 blah. But the controllers that I always had were the white Xbox 360 controllers, which basically looked like this, but white. And those things I've had literally since 2005. Since my dad got the console and brought it home, those were the controllers that I've had. So these controllers actually belong to my grandfather. My grandfather, when he served in the military in the late 2000s, had a 360, and I believe he got an S. So maybe maybe it was more the late 2010s that he would have played. But this is actually the Elite controller, which is funny thinking now. But this is you can tell because it has the gray and it's bleh, kind of yucky looking. This is what actually released with the console that I use more professionally now, so pretty excited about that. And then a nicer controller. This is the controller that would have come with the S. I need to clean it a little bit. The thumbsticks are pretty gross. The D-pad sticks a little bit. And then the light, the third light on this controller, you know how you have the 4 lights that light up? The bottom right one doesn't light up, so I don't know what that's about, but I don't know, pretty happy about that. I've wanted to get replacement 360 controllers for a while. I think this one will become my main one. Unfortunately, I wanted it to be one that had that, like, adjustable D-pad, but I don't know. The 360 controller, of course, is a great controller, and so, yeah, anyone that still plays the 360, I highly recommend you actually get a good controller, because mine still have horrible stick drift, and I don't know how I've used them for as long as I have, but I have. Okay, we're gonna move back to some Nintendo stuff. So I have to admit, obviously currently it's October as I'm making this video, but September is the lead-in to October, and I'm usually never one that loves Halloween, but I love horror games and horror movies. And what better franchise to celebrate than with Resident Evil? I'm actually going to save the really fancy one for last, but I have to admit something. The only version of Resident Evil 4 that I've played is the PS2 version. I mean, growing up, of course, like the version I most think of when I think of Resident Evil 4 is the PS2 version, and that's a decent version. It has good extra content, bad sound quality, but it's a decent version. And then, of course, I got the PS4 version as that came out. I have never actually played the original version of Resident Evil 4, and that's what we have with us today. Resident Evil 4. Only for GameCube. Yeah, I don't know about that, bud. So yeah, this is Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube. I kind of always expected this to be a really expensive game, because the other Resident Evil games go for a pretty penny, specifically, well, okay, really only 2 and 3, but those had limited print runs. But, yeah, so this is the GameCube version. Eventually, I mean, there's already so many videos out there talking about the different ports. Of course, 2-disc game, because it's too good. I actually really like how, the white and black is, like, inverted. That's pretty neat. And so, yeah, I don't know. I thought I'd pick this up because it fascinates me this was a GameCube game. This was in an era when Nintendo, for better or for worse, didn't really know what the GameCube was, right? They were trying to appeal to children. They were trying to appeal to adults, because, let's face it, the N64, great console, but definitely appealed a lot to children. And, you know, that's not a bad thing, but they wanted to broaden their horizons a little bit, so they made that deal with Capcom, which led to another game I will show off here very soon. But of course, out of the deal, we got Resident Evil Remake, which, to this day, one of the best remakes of all time, Resident Evil 0, and then the ports of Resident Evil 2 and 3 to the GameCube. And then there's one more game that I'll talk about, probably at the end, because it's by far the most interesting one. And then, continuing the theme, Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition. This is a pretty neat version. For those of you that don't know, I don't love the Wii that much. Never really have, yeah. There you go. Sprint. So why did I get this as well as the original? Well, Resident Evil 4, as most of you know, is on every damn console ever made, so I decided I want to own it on every damn console ever made, or just about. I guess really the only version I'm missing now is, like, physical version you can get in the United States is PC version and then Xbox One, but so that means I have GameCube, Wii, PS4, PS2, and then yeah. So I have a lot of versions of Resident Evil 4, and I mean, it's fitting. It's like The Legend of Zelda. I'd say Resident Evil is up there as one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. So yeah, and the way that these two compare is actually really interesting. So the Wii version, of course, has the pointer controls, and I have to admit, even as someone that does not like pointer controls, they work really damn well. I do wish that the thing supported the Wii Zapper, or at least felt a little more comfortable with the Wii Zapper, because it feels like it should, but it doesn't. And there's dozens of videos out there comparing these two versions, as well as the PS2 and all of them. So I won't go too into it today, but the Wii version has a couple of advantages. One, because it's easier. You're aiming with the Wii remote, but you actually pull your knife out the fastest in this version out of any. So really cool. And I just figured, like, why not play through a couple of different versions of Resident Evil 4? One problem, the game's really long, so we'll see. Why not play through and check out the different versions of Resident Evil 4 before the game makes its way to PS4, at least, right? PS4, Xbox Series X and S, and then PlayStation 5 and PC for the remake, because I love Resident Evil, and if you know anything about me, you know that I have adored the past two remakes they have done for Resident Evil 2 and 3. 3, I'll get into, I've done videos on it, but 3, I still really liked 3, and so I really am curious what they're going to do with 4, because this is one of the most landmark titles in existence, right? It's up there with Half-Life 2, Ocarina of Time, games that changed the way that not only us as consumers and fans and gamers looked at video games, but how other game companies looked at games. So I don't know, it's gonna be really interesting seeing what they do with that, and so I figured, why not, let's mess around with some Resident Evil 4. It's a bit long, but still a pretty damn good game. Alright, I've saved the best for last, and then one last thing. So I mentioned there was one other game, part of that Capcom Resident Evil Nintendo deal. And what game was that? Let's see. Yeah. So if you've watched my Resident Evil tier list video, which, by the way, I highly recommend you go check out. It's spooky month now. Go check it out. I mentioned how this game, in a lot of ways, this version of Resident Evil 2 is like the holy grail to me. I was like, I really want to get my hands on this, and, well, I did. And, it's amazing. Like, it genuinely excites me so much, the fact that this exists. I'm the type of person that, clearly I love different versions of games, but, come on. It's Resident Evil 2 on the N64 on a cartridge. This dinky little thing. And the whole game is there, pretty much. I learned the hard way that the B scenario music, the B scenario credits music, is not on this version. So if you are a fan of the B scenario credits music like me, don't go into this game expecting to be able to hear it. That's, I'm sure, due to compression and to save space. But, I'm the type of guy that loves Witcher 3 on the Switch. Bizarre ports that just make no sense. And, this game represented something in the industry at the time that a lot of people just didn't think was possible. Capcom gave Angel Studios, now known as Rockstar San Diego, $1 million to make this happen, to fit over 1.3 gigabytes of CD data into a 64 megabyte cartridge. And to me, this is what represents so much what I love about this industry. The ingenuity, the creativity. Yes, they had to make compromises, but if you'd played this version and had no idea that there was a PS1 version, I'm sure you still had a damn good time with it. And I've spent a lot of time with this version already. I've beaten 2 scenarios, A and B, And I have to say, like, this is just incredible work. You know, and of course, the biggest thing with the N64 is third parties didn't want to support it because of the cartridge issue. You know, Square Enix completely jumped ship, and so what did we got? Almost, I don't think there was a single Square Enix game released for the N64 because Square was like, no, fuck you, like, we don't want to deal with dinky cartridges. And yet Capcom, man, they proved to the world that it is possible, right? A lot of people just didn't think, like, CDs have so much more space, you can do so much more, and it had less to do with, you know, the PS1 being more powerful, because in general the N64 is actually more powerful, especially when you involve disk drive. But I don't know, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here. Truly incredible, this game. Like, it fascinates me so much that this exists, and I'm holding it, and there's a Nintendo logo and Resident Evil 2. Like, it's just amazing. And to my knowledge, this was the first Resident Evil game ever on a Nintendo console. Really cool thing about this version is the EX files is what they're called, and basically those are to tie into the original Resident Evil, because it was not playable on a Nintendo console, of course, until the GameCube version. And then the then upcoming, at the time, N64 version of Resident Evil 0. And so you have references to Rebecca Chambers, you have references to what Barry was doing in the mansion and stuff like that. I don't know, just a really cool version. And, like, as a fan of Resident Evil alone, this is well worth owning. I don't know, I feel like I've gushed about this too much. I spent way too much on this. Like, I have to admit, I try not to buy games that are over, you know, full price, right? Like $60. This, I spent like $70 on, but I traded in quite a good handful of games that I no longer needed or wanted to get this, and it was worth it. This has brought me so much joy. Like, I'm gonna have to show you guys someday, like, just how amazing I think this version of the game is. Because Resident Evil 2, as it stands, is just one of my favorite games of all time, and seeing it on a console that, you know, can barely run Ocarina of Time without exploding, it's impressive. Definitely impressive. Okay, I gotta really wrap things up here and move on, but we got one more thing. Now, I'm sure you saw this thing in the background quite a few times. I kept glancing at it, but this is the thing we're gonna end the video on. So for the longest time, I've been using an N64 controller, right? And this is that controller. You know, it's green, pretty good. The only problem is, like most N64 controllers, the thumbstick just starts to feel a bit crap. So, you know, in general, I've been using this thing for about 3 years now, and I was like, you know what, I need a new controller. And I was looking online at prices, and used N64 controllers actually go for about $50 for really good condition ones with good analog sticks and good buttons and a good controller pack slot. So enter the Brawler 64. This is done by a company called Retro Fighters, as I'm sure you can imagine why. They made these controllers specifically for Smash Brothers, and I actually bought this at my local retro gaming store. They have quite a different amount of these in stock, and so the thing about this, I want to make a video about this because it's a good controller. I'm going to get that out of the way. I'll show you what's inside. Oh, man. So it's a wireless controller, and I might do a separate video on this thing. I probably should. Sorry, trying to open this with one hand is embarrassing. I want to do a separate video on this thing eventually, but the verdict essentially is, if you hate this controller, which I know quite a lot of people don't like this controller, I'm fine with it. I'm used to it. Get this, okay? As you can tell, ergonomics-wise, very similar, right? Thumbstick, buttons, thighs, triggers. Definitely get this. But be aware, it's not magic, okay? This is a wireless controller, and it feels like it. It uses this little port, and you're wondering, why the fuck is this so big? It's so that you can actually put your memory pack in there and still save games. This thing, it says it has a 30-foot range. It feels a lot more like 15, which is fine because I don't play that far away from my TV, but there's instances where this thing will constantly disconnect, and it could be a battery issue. but I charge this thing every time I'm not using it, so yeah. I will do a separate video on this thing eventually, but essentially, I wish that it does have a port in there where you charge it. I wish there was a little dongle on this somewhere, right, where you could play with it plugged in and have it wired and not have to deal with the wireless hassle. There is a wired version of this controller, but they no longer make it, so the only way to actually get a hold of it is through, you know, third-party retail service. So a bit on that. So yeah, but I'm being a little negative on this thing. This thing is awesome. I played through the entirety of both scenarios of Resident Evil 2 on this thing, and it's great. The D-pad feels really good. At first I was a bit weirded out that like there's no like nothing on here, no nubs, no grooves, no nothing on here to kind of make it feel more grippy, if that's the sense. But no, it works really well, and you know, D-pad's great, these buttons are great. It has a turbo and clear button and all the C buttons. The C buttons are actually a little bigger than, whatever, I'm kind of doing a full review. 2 Z buttons and then L and R. And that's from Retro Fighters. I would actually pretty highly recommend this. Well, that is going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Did you get anything interesting this month? I think by far Resident Evil 2 is my takeaway. Even this thing, I've come to enjoy this thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'll probably be playing some NFL and hopefully finish Red Faction. Let me know, for one, did you even know that there was an N64 version of this game? Because I don't know. When I first heard there was, my mind was blown, but I've talked about that enough. So yeah, yes, yet again, thank you so much for watching. Please go ahead and check out the description. Follow me on Twitter. Like the video. Follow my Retro Games account on Instagram. I like posting about games there when I remember I have that account. And of course, TikTok. I've started doing some retro gaming content there on TikTok. Let me know if you want to see a full review of the Retro Fighter controller. And with that out of the way, again, thank you so much, and as always, stay strong, gamers.